I was in the kitchen, stirring the pot of chili, when my daughter, Jessica, came home screaming into her phone. At 4 years old, she was still living with me. She claimed it was to take care of me, but I knew the truth. She couldn't pay her own bills. That day, she was furious because her ex-husband, Rick, had once again missed the child support payment for my grandson, Leo, who was barely 9 years old. When I turned off the stove and turned around to ask if she wanted lunch, Jessica exploded. "You filthy old hag, can't you see I'm on the phone?" And then, something happened that I never thought I would experience. She spat in my face. The saliva slid down my cheek while she kept screaming, "You're good for nothing but getting in the way. You should have just stayed quiet in your corner." I wiped my face with my apron, swallowed the humiliation, and didn't say a word. My name is Margaret Henderson. I am 67 years old, and I have always been a woman of character. I raised Jessica alone after my husband, Robert, left when she was just 6. I worked as a seamstress and tailor for 38 years to give my daughter an education and a dignified life. I bought this house in the suburbs of Philadelphia with great sacrifice, always dreaming that one day it would be a home filled with love and respect. But in the last 3 years, since Jessica moved back in with me after her divorce, my own house had become a living hell. She treated me like a maid. She yelled at me in front of Leo, and I always stayed silent, thinking of my grandson. In that moment, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, my face still damp with the humiliation, something inside me began to wake up. That afternoon, while Jessica went out to handle her business, leaving Leo with me, I sat there thinking about everything that had happened. My grandson hugged me and whispered, "Grandma, why does Mom yell at you so much?" Those innocent words hit me like lightning. I realized that Leo was growing up thinking it was normal to disrespect the elderly, especially women. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of chamomile tea and began to see my situation with absolute clarity. Jessica wasn't there to help me. She was using me. The house was in my name. The bills were paid with my Social Security checks, and on top of that, I watched Leo while she looked for work. But what they didn't know was that I had much more control over my life than they imagined. And everything was about to change. The next morning dawned gray, as if the sky reflected the weight I carried in my soul. Jessica woke up in a bad mood, as usual lately, and started her routine of complaints while I made breakfast. "This coffee is too strong, Mom. You can't even make a decent cup of coffee anymore," she told me without even looking at me, her eyes glued to her smartphone. Leo came running into the kitchen with his school uniform messy, and when I bent down to tuck in his shirt, he told me quietly, "Grandma, I dreamed we moved to another place where we were happy." His words went straight to my heart. That 9-year-old boy already felt the tension in the house, the heaviness in the air, the constant disrespect toward his grandmother. While they ate breakfast, I stood by the stove, observing the scene that repeated every morning, Jessica checking her social media, completely ignoring her son, who was trying to tell her about a school assignment. "Mom," the teacher said, "I have to make a family tree," Leo said with enthusiasm. "Leo, can't you see I'm busy?" Jessica replied without looking up. "But Mommy." The boy fell silent, his spoon of cereal halfway to his mouth, and I felt my heart shrink. It was always like this. Jessica had completely lost connection with what was truly important, her own son. After walking Leo to the school bus stop, I returned home and found Jessica talking on the phone in my bedroom, rummaging through my drawers. "Yes, Carla, the house is in a great location," she was telling her friend. "You know how old people are, always exaggerating their aches and pains. When she finally has to go to the nursing home, I can finally fix this place up properly." She realized I had entered the room, but she didn't flinch. On the contrary, she kept talking as if I weren't there. "The neighborhood is gentrifying fast. This house is going to be worth double in a few years." That afternoon, sitting in my favorite armchair in the living room, where I had sewn for so many years to provide her with everything she needed, I understood that the time had come to stop being the silent victim of my own story. The following weeks were a painful revelation of how my family really saw me. Jessica had invited her sister, Linda, to dinner one Sunday, and I got excited thinking we would have a quiet family meal. I prepared pot roast, the favorite dish of both girls since childhood. I set the table with my best china and dressed up in my navy blue dress, the one that always looked elegant. But when Linda arrived, the two of them locked themselves in Jessica's room to talk in private. From the kitchen, where I was washing dishes, I managed to hear fragments of their conversation that froze my blood. "Jessica, I understand you perfectly," Linda said with that condescending tone she had always used. "Look at how I live with George. Peaceful, without having to babysit Mom 24 hours a day. You've done your part. She had her life. Now it's your turn to live yours." I heard them laugh, and then Jessica replied, "It's just that sometimes I feel like I live in a museum, Linda. I can't move anything, I can't change anything, and on top of that, I have to be thanking her all the time because it's her house. I feel like a teenager again." "Exactly," Linda continued. "And besides, how long is this going to last? Old people live into their 90s now. Can you imagine 20 more years like this?" My hands trembled as I dried the same plate over and over again. These were my two daughters, the girls I had raised with so much love, talking about me as if I were a burden, an obstacle to their happiness. In that moment, I understood it wasn't my paranoia. They really saw me as a nuisance. When they came out of the room and sat at the table, they acted as if nothing had happened. "Oh, Mom, the roast smells delicious," Jessica said with a fake smile. "Right? Nobody makes pot roast like Grandma Maggie," Linda added, holding Leo. But I had already seen them without their masks. I had heard their true feelings, and that night I stayed awake until very late, feeling something break inside me that would never be the same again. In the days that followed, I noticed things I used to overlook or justify with excuses. Like when Jessica brought her friends over and introduced me by saying, "This is my mom. She lives here with me," as if I were a temporary guest in my own home. Or when Leo wanted me to read him stories and Jessica interrupted, "Let your grandma rest, Leo. She's too old to be playing with you." And I wondered, since when did taking care of my grandson become a burden? Since when did my age become a limitation to love? One morning, while I was hanging laundry in the backyard, I heard Jessica talking to a neighbor about retirement homes. "Yes, Mrs. Peterson, that assisted living facility in Cherry Hill is very nice. My cousin put her mother-in-law there and says they take great care of them. One has to think about these things, right? We can't be selfish with our parents." The neighbor replied something I couldn't catch, but I saw Jessica nod and smile. When I entered the house, she had already hung up the phone and was acting as if nothing had happened. "Mom, don't you think you need more exercise? Could you go to those senior yoga classes at the Y?" She told me with a tone that pretended to be affectionate, but that I now recognized as manipulative. That afternoon, while Jessica went to pick up Leo from school, I decided to check my important papers. I hadn't looked at them fully in years, always trusting that everything was in order. But when I opened the safe where I kept my documents, I found something that left me speechless. Several papers had been moved. Some were photocopied, and there were new documents I didn't remember signing, among them a power of attorney that gave Jessica access to my bank accounts in case of a medical emergency. I didn't remember signing that, but there was my signature. I sat on the edge of my bed with the documents in my hands and understood that my daughter had been preparing for some time to take control of my life without consulting me. That night, during dinner, I observed my family with new eyes. Jessica chewed mechanically while checking her phone. Leo tried to tell me about his day at school, and I responded with automatic smiles while my mind processed the new reality. "Grandma, are you okay? You look sad," my grandson asked, with that sensitivity children have to notice when something isn't right. "I'm fine, my love, just a little tired," I lied, stroking his shiny black hair. Jessica looked up for a second. "Mom, if you feel bad, you should go to the doctor. At your age, anything can be serious." But in her tone, there was no genuine concern, but rather the expectation that I was indeed sick, as if that justified the plans she already had in mind. The next day was Saturday, and Jessica announced she would be out all day with some friends. "Mom, can you watch Leo? You know I need to clear my head a bit." As always, it wasn't a question, but a declaration. I nodded as I had done for years, but this time there was something different in my silence. While she got ready to go out, singing pop songs she knew by heart, I watched her every move. She applied expensive makeup I didn't know how she could afford with her part-time job. She put on new clothes that appeared in her closet every week. When she left, leaving Leo watching cartoons, I sat down to check my bank accounts online. What I discovered knocked the wind out of me. Jessica had access to my main checking account for 6 months and had been withdrawing money regularly. Small amounts I hadn't noticed, $40 here, $60 there, always with justifications that sounded reasonable when she told me, "Mom, I need money for Leo's medicine. The washing machine broke, and we need to fix it. The car needs service urgently." But adding up all those emergencies, she was taking almost half of my Social Security check every month. And worst of all, she had found a way to access the savings account I had opened for Leo's college education. My grandson had an account with $15,000 that I had gathered working overtime for years, and Jessica had already withdrawn $4,000 without my authorization. I sat there in front of the computer, feeling my stomach turn. It wasn't just the money, it was the betrayal, the lack of respect, the way she had been deceiving me while telling me she loved me. Leo came running over. "Grandma, can you make me a grilled cheese?" His cheerful little voice contrasted so much with the bitterness I felt in that moment. I picked him up, kissed his forehead, and made him his favorite sandwich with extra cheddar. While he ate happily, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to be the submissive grandmother who let herself be robbed and humiliated anymore. I was 67, but my mind was clearer than ever, and it was time to show them what it meant to lose someone who truly loved them. During the days that followed, I kept my normal routine, but my interior had changed completely. Every morning I woke up with a determination I hadn't felt in years. When Jessica yelled at me, I simply nodded and continued with my activities. When she asked for money for her important expenses, I gave her what I had on hand without asking questions. But in the afternoons, while she went out and Leo was at school, I started making very important calls. First, I called my cousin Arthur, who lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, and explained my situation. He listened with great attention and told me something that marked me. "Maggie, respect isn't begged for, it's earned. And if someone decides not to give it to you, you decide not to give it to them either." I also contacted Mr. Harrison, the attorney who had helped me when I bought the house. I explained the situation with the documents I had found, and he confirmed something terrible. The power of attorney Jessica had made me sign was very broad. It gave her almost total control over my assets if she managed to prove I was incapacitated. "Mrs. Henderson," he told me with a serious voice, "this is more common than you imagine. Many children manipulate their parents to keep their properties, but you are well within your rights to revoke that power whenever you like. Your mind is perfectly clear." That afternoon, I left the lawyer's office with a folder full of new documents and a plan that would shake the foundations of the life Jessica thought she controlled. On Friday night, Jessica came home with news that froze my blood. "Mom, I have something important to tell you," she announced while pouring herself a glass of water in the kitchen. "I've been thinking a lot about your well-being, and I think it's time we consider other options for your care." I sat in a kitchen chair, pretending I didn't know where the conversation was going. "What kind of options, honey?" I asked, with the most innocent voice I could muster. "Well, specialized places where they can attend to you better. You need to socialize with people your age, do activities, have medical supervision. Here you spend too much time alone when I work." The irony was cruel. She never worked more than 4 hours a day, and the rest of the time she spent at the mall or with her friends. "Jessica," I said very calmly, "this is my house. I bought it with my work. I maintained it with my effort, and I have been happy here for 20 years. She sighed as if she were talking to a stubborn child. "Mom, I understand you feel attached, but you can't live alone anymore. What happens if you fall and no one is there? What happens if you forget to turn off the gas? I can't be calm knowing you're at risk." Her words sounded concerned, but I knew my daughter. I knew when she was acting and when she was genuine. "Besides," she continued, "selling the house would give us good money to ensure your care in a really good place. I would take charge of administering everything, obviously." That night, after putting Leo to bed, I stayed awake in my room, going over every detail of the last few months. I remembered all the times Jessica had casually mentioned stories of elderly people who had accidents at home, the occasions she had commented on how expensive it was to maintain such a big house, how she had started talking about nursing homes as if they were luxury spas. Everything had been a slow and calculated campaign to convince me that I needed specialized care, when the reality was that she needed my money and my house. Early Monday morning, while Jessica slept deeply after coming home drunk the night before, I left the house with my most elegant handbag and all my important documents. My first stop was the bank, where I asked to speak with the branch manager. I explained the whole situation, showed him the unauthorized withdrawals, and he immediately blocked Jessica's access to all my accounts. "Mrs. Henderson," he told me with respect, "you have every right to protect your assets. Your daughter had no authorization to withdraw money from the minor's account." I signed new papers, changed all my passwords, and felt as if I had recovered my financial freedom after months of being robbed in my own home. My second stop was Mr. Harrison's office. There, I signed the revocation of the power of attorney Jessica had tricked me into signing, and we did something even more important, a new will. In the previous one, Jessica inherited everything. In the new one, everything went into a trust for Leo, which could only be administered by an independent trustee until he turned 25. Jessica wouldn't inherit a dime from me. "Mr. Harrison," I told him with a firm voice, "I want to make sure my grandson has a dignified future without depending on a mother who doesn't know how to value or take care of what she has." I left that office feeling lighter than I had in years, but my plan was just beginning. That afternoon, while Jessica thought I was taking my usual nap, I contacted a very discreet real estate agency. The appraisal of my house was a surprise even to me. It was worth $450,000, much more than Jessica imagined. The neighborhood had indeed gentrified, just as she had told her friend, but what she didn't know was that I was perfectly aware of the value of my assets. The agent explained that he had interested buyers who could close the sale in less than 3 weeks, a cash offer. "Are you sure, Mrs. Henderson? It's a very important decision," he asked with genuine concern. "Sir," I replied, "I am 67 years old, and I know exactly what I am doing. My daughter wants my house, but she doesn't want me. Well, she's going to learn the difference." During those days, I observed Jessica with completely new eyes. I saw how she spoke with contempt about older ladies on TV. Oh, these dramatic old women, always exaggerating everything. I saw how she treated Leo when she was in a bad mood. "I told you no, Leo. Not everything revolves around you." I saw how she spent my money on unnecessary things, expensive clothes, meals at restaurants, beauty treatments, while she haggled with me over $1 when I needed to buy my blood pressure medicine. "Mom, don't you think $20 for pills is a lot? Should you look for cheaper generics?" she would say while carrying shopping bags from Nordstrom worth hundreds. On Wednesday of that week, Jessica arrived with a surprise for me. She had made an appointment with a geriatrician for a general checkup. "Mom, at your age, it's important to get full studies done. This doctor is very good, a specialist in older people." I agreed without asking questions, but when we arrived at the office, I realized it wasn't a normal medical consultation. Jessica stayed in the office the whole time, answering questions about my behavior at home, my frequent forgetfulness, my mood swings. The doctor asked me very strange questions. If I knew what day it was, if I remembered names of past presidents, if I had difficulties handling money. I answered everything perfectly, with more clarity than I had had in years, but I noticed how Jessica tried to intervene. "Doctor, it's just that at home she sometimes gets confused with dates. Lately, she's very forgetful with her keys." When we left the office, Jessica was quiet, clearly annoyed because the doctor hadn't found any sign of cognitive decline. In the car, while she drove back home, she said something that confirmed all my suspicions. "Mom, I think you got nervous with the doctor. You didn't answer like you normally would." It was incredible. She was trying to convince me that I was unwell when I had just proven the opposite. "Jessica," I said very calmly, "my faculties are perfect. In fact, I've never felt more lucid." She didn't answer, but I saw her grip the steering wheel tighter. That night was the last time I had dinner with my family in my house. Jessica had made sandwiches, something quick because she had an important date, and Leo was excitedly telling us about a science project he was doing at school. "Grandma, I'm making a volcano that's going to really erupt. Will you help me finish it?" "Of course, my darling," I replied, and I saw Jessica roll her eyes. "Leo, your grandma is too old to be bending down doing school projects. You better ask your Aunt Linda for help." "But I want Grandma to help me," the boy insisted. "I said no!" Jessica yelled, and Leo fell silent immediately, tears in his eyes. In that moment, something inside me broke permanently. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't rage, it was absolute clarity. Jessica wasn't just stealing my money and planning to take my house, she was damaging the relationship between Leo and me. She was turning my grandson into a witness of disrespect toward his grandmother, teaching him that the elderly have no value, that their opinions don't matter, that their feelings can be ignored. That night, after helping Leo with his volcano while Jessica was on her date, I made the most important decision of my life. I stayed awake until 3 a.m. writing letters. One for Leo, explaining that everything I was about to do was out of love for him. Another for Jessica, explaining exactly everything I had discovered and everything that was going to happen. And a third letter to myself, something I had never done before, but felt was necessary. In that letter, I wrote down all the reasons why I deserved respect, all the times I had shown my love, all the sacrifices I had made, and all the times I had been patient when I should have set boundaries. I wrote until my fingers hurt, until I ran out of tears, until I felt I had emptied my chest of all the pain accumulated over years. At 5 a.m., when it was still dark, I packed a small suitcase with my most important things: the clothes I really liked, the jewelry I had inherited from my mother, Leo's photos, and my Bible that had accompanied me all my life. I left the letters on the kitchen table along with the house keys and a folder with all the sale documents, a sale that would become effective in exactly 15 days. I also left Leo's savings passbook with a note explaining that all that money was for him and that I had protected it from the theft his mother was committing. When I closed the door of my house for the last time, I didn't feel nostalgia. I felt liberation. I had spent months being treated like an old piece of furniture in my own home, like a nuisance that had to be tolerated until a way was found to get rid of me. Jessica wanted me to disappear from her life so she could keep everything I had built. Well, I was going to give her exactly what she asked for, my absence, but without the prize she expected. The Uber taking me to the bus station was taking me away not just from that house, but from years of silent humiliation. When the driver asked if I was okay because he had seen me crying, I smiled and said, "I'm perfect, young man." For the first time in a long time, I'm perfect. On the bus to Charlotte, while watching the landscape pass by the window, I thought about everything Jessica would find when she woke up. The letters explaining exactly what she had done wrong, the sale documents showing she no longer had a house to live in rent-free, Leo's account statement revealing her thefts, and above all, my total absence. There would be no screaming, no begging, no reality TV drama, just the absolute silence of a woman who had finally decided that her dignity was worth more than keeping together a family that had already broken from the inside. Jessica had spent years telling me I was a burden, that I was in the way, that I should leave. Well, she had gotten her way, but she never imagined that when I left, I would take everything that really mattered with me. I arrived in Charlotte at 11 a.m., and my cousin Arthur was waiting for me at the station with a smile I hadn't seen in years. "Maggie, you look different," he said as he carried my suitcase. "You look free." He was right. For the first time in a long time, I didn't carry the weight of walking on eggshells in my own home. His wife, Karen, received me with a long, sincere hug. "This house is yours for as long as you need," she told me, with that warmth I had forgotten existed between relatives. They gave me the guest room small, cozy, with a window overlooking a garden full of dogwoods. It was the first time in years I would wake up without the sound of shouting or complaints in the background. During my first days in Charlotte, my phone didn't stop ringing. Jessica called every hour, first with a desperate voice, then furious, then pleading. I listened to the voicemails she left, but I didn't answer a single call. "Mom, this is crazy. You can't sell the house without consulting me," she screamed in one message. In another, the tone changed. "Mommy, forgive me if I said something that upset you, but you can't punish Leo like this. He needs you." And in the most desperate one, "Maggie, this is illegal. I'm going to sue." Each message confirmed I had made the right decision. There wasn't a single real apology, nor a single acknowledgement of all the damage she had done to me. Only panic over losing what she considered hers. On the third day, I received a call from Mr. Harrison. "Mrs. Henderson, your daughter showed up at my office with a lawyer. They are trying to challenge the sale, alleging that you are not in your right mind." I laughed for the first time in weeks. "Mr. Harrison, I hope you showed them all the medical and psychological documents you asked me to get." "Of course, ma'am. The geriatrician's certificate confirms that you are in perfect mental condition. Your daughter has no legal recourse. The sale proceeds as scheduled." I hung up the phone, feeling a satisfaction I had never experienced. Jessica had completely underestimated her poor old mother. One afternoon, while helping Karen prepare dinner, a call came through that broke my heart. It was Leo, crying. "Grandma, why did you leave? Mom says you're mad at me." His trembling little voice made my hands shake. "My love, I could never be mad at you. I love you more than anything in the world. Then why won't you come home?" "I miss you helping me with my homework." Karen realized I was crying and put a hand on my shoulder. "Leo, sometimes adults have to take difficult decisions to protect the people they love. I am protecting you, even if you don't understand it now. But when are you coming back?" The question split my soul. "I don't know, honey, but I want you to know you will always be the most important thing to me." After hanging up, I locked myself in my room and cried like I hadn't cried in years. It wasn't tears of sadness, but of rage. Rage because Jessica was using Leo to manipulate me emotionally. Rage because my grandson was suffering the consequences of his mother's selfish decisions. Rage because after everything I had done for her, Jessica didn't understand that I had taken that decision precisely to protect Leo from growing up in an environment where the elderly are not respected. Karen knocked softly on the door. "Maggie, can I come in?" She entered with a cup of chamomile tea and sat beside me on the bed. My sister Hope went through the same thing with her son. "It hurts right now, but you did the right thing." That night, lying in my new bed, I started to remember how I had reached this situation. I thought about Robert, my ex-husband, who had left when Jessica was 6 because he wasn't ready for the responsibility of a family. I remembered the nights I sewed until 3 a.m. to pay the rent for our little apartment in South Philly. Jessica was a cute girl, with big eyes and a mischievous smile, who always asked me when her daddy would come back. Soon, my love, I would lie, because I didn't have the heart to explain that he had chosen his freedom over us. For years, she was the only good thing in my life. The reason I worked 18 hours a day, the motivation to keep going when everything seemed impossible. I remembered when Jessica turned 16, and I had saved for 2 years to throw her a sweet 16 party that matched her dreams. I rented a small hall. I bought her a pink dress that made her look like a princess. I hired a DJ. That night, seeing her dance with my brother Bill, who had played the role of father, I felt all the sacrifices had been worth it. "Mommy, thanks for doing this for me," she had told me that night, hugging me tight. "You're the best mom in the world." Those words had been a balm for my tired soul. At what moment had that grateful girl turned into the woman who spat in my face? The next day, Arthur suggested we go for a walk in downtown Charlotte. It had been years since I strolled without rushing, without having to run back home to make food or wash Jessica's clothes. We walked through the clean streets, looked at the modern buildings, and sat on a bench in a park to have ice cream like two tourists. "Maggie," Arthur said while we watched families passing by, "when was the last time you did something just because it pleased you?" I stayed thinking and realized something terrible. I didn't remember the last time I had done something for myself. Everything in my life had revolved around Jessica's needs, and then Leo's. "You know what?" I told Arthur. "I want to call my old friend Rose. We worked together at the textile factory 20 years ago. Rose had married a businessman and moved to Savannah, Georgia, but we had kept in sporadic contact. When I called her and told her my situation, her reaction surprised me. "Maggie, it's about time you reacted. I always knew that girl was taking advantage of you." Every time I called and she answered, she had an attitude, as if I were bothering her. "Rose invited me to visit her in Savannah. Come for a few days, dear. I have a clothing business, and you could help me. It'll do you good to be active and meet new people." That conversation made me reflect on how many opportunities I had rejected over the last few years to not leave Jessica alone. How many invitations from friends, how many trips, how many moments of joy I had sacrificed for a daughter who, in the end, only saw me as her personal servant. I remembered when my friend Teresa had invited me on a Caribbean cruise for her 60th birthday. "Teresa, I can't leave Jessica with the boy. She works so much," I had told her. But the reality was that Jessica worked 4 hours a day and spent the rest of the time at the gym or with her friends. I had rejected a dream trip to babysit an adult woman who could perfectly well take care of herself. On Saturday morning, while we were having breakfast on Arthur's patio, an unexpected call came. It was Linda, Jessica's sister, with a nervous voice. "Aunt Maggie, Mom? Where are you? Jessica is going crazy looking for you." "I am perfectly fine, Linda, and tell your sister to stop the drama." "But Mom, Leo is very sad. He keeps asking for you." "Linda," I said with a firm voice, Leo is sad because his mother is manipulating him emotionally. Instead of explaining the truth, she is using his pain to make me feel guilty. Linda fell silent for a moment. Mom, the truth is that Jessica really is desperate. I think she never imagined you would do this. Exactly, I replied. She never believed I was capable of defending myself. That was her mistake. After hanging up, Arthur asked me something that made me reflect deeply. Maggie, do you think Jessica really didn't know she was hurting you, or did she simply not care? The question made me uncomfortable because it touched on something I had avoided thinking about. For years, I had convinced myself that Jessica acted that way because she was stressed, because the divorce had affected her, because raising Leo alone was hard. But sitting there, in that quiet morning, I remembered dozens of moments when I had seen in her eyes that she knew exactly what she was doing, like when she yelled at me in front of her friends and then winked at me, as if it were a game, or when she asked to borrow money knowing perfectly well she would never pay me back. Arthur, I said finally, I think Jessica did know she was hurting me, and I think she liked having that power over me. It was the first time I admitted it out loud, and saying it freed me from a huge burden. And you know what's saddest? I added. I allowed it because I was afraid of losing her love, but I realized that love never really existed. That afternoon I received a call from Mr. Harrison with news that gladdened my heart. Mrs. Henderson, the sale was completed successfully. The money is already deposited in your new account. Mr. Harrison, what do you want me to do with the belongings left in the house? Whatever is left, there are Jessica's and Leo's things. I took the only thing that really mattered to me. And the furniture? There is furniture that is clearly yours. Let her keep it. Consider it my last parting gift. When I hung up, Arthur saw me smile. Good news? The best. Officially, I no longer have a house in Philadelphia, and I've never felt freer. That night, Karen made my favorite dinner, meatloaf with mashed potatoes. While we ate, she told me about a friend of hers who had gone through a similar situation. Her name was Hope. She had 3 children who treated her very badly. One day she disappeared. She went to live with a sister in Florida. The children looked for her like crazy, but when they found her, she had rebuilt her life. She had a job she liked, new friends, even a suitor, she told them. You guys told me I was a burden. Now see how it feels to live without this burden. The story made me laugh. And what happened? At first, the children were furious, but after a few months, they realized how much they depended on her. They begged for forgiveness on their knees, but she had decided her new life was better. On Sunday morning, while watering the plants in Karen's garden, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I decided to answer. Mrs. Margaret Henderson? It was a young woman's voice I didn't identify. Yes, who is speaking? This is Monica, Leo's teacher. Excuse me for taking the liberty of calling you, but I am very worried about the boy. My blood froze. Did something happen to my grandson? No, ma'am. Physically he is fine, but we are very worried about his emotional state. Since you left, the boy is very depressed. He doesn't participate in class. He cries frequently, and yesterday he told us something that alarmed us. What did he tell you? I asked, feeling my heart accelerate. He told us that he is to blame for you leaving, and that if he hadn't been born, you would still be happy with his mom. The words broke my soul. Miss Monica, that is not true. Leo is not to blame for anything. We know, ma'am, but the child is very confused. His mom tells him one thing. You aren't here to explain the other. Would it be possible for you to write him a letter? The boy needs to know it's not his fault. That same afternoon, I sat down to write the hardest letter of my life. I explained to Leo, in words he could understand, that sometimes adults have to make difficult decisions, that I loved him more than anything in the world, but that I needed to be in a place where I was treated with respect. I told him that when he was older he would understand better, but in the meantime, I wanted him to know he had done nothing wrong. The next day, Mr. Harrison called me with information I didn't expect. Mrs. Henderson, Jessica is trying to locate where you are. She hired a private investigator. The news made me nervous. Can she do that legally? She can try, but you are an adult in full possession of your faculties. You are not obligated to say where you live, nor to receive unwanted visitors. That afternoon, I spoke with Arthur about my fears. Maggie, if you want to be calmer, you can stay here as long as you need. This city is big, and besides, no one is looking for you for committing a crime. You simply decided to leave your house. During those weeks in Charlotte, I began to rediscover who I was before becoming the self-sacrificing mother who endured everything. I started waking up when I felt like it, not because someone needed me. I ate breakfast calmly, reading the whole newspaper, not just the headlines, while running to make lunch. In the afternoons, I walked through the city, visited museums, sat in cafes to drink a cappuccino, and watch people pass. It was incredible to realize how much I had stopped doing to please a daughter who never thanked me for my sacrifices. One morning, while sunbathing in the garden, Karen sat next to me with a serious expression. "Maggie, I have to tell you something. Yesterday a girl came asking for you. She said she was a market researcher, but I suspect she was the person Jessica hired to find you." My heart raced. "What did you tell her?" That I had never heard of any Margaret Henderson. "But I think it's time you make a decision. Are you going to stay hidden forever, or are you going to face the situation?" Karen was right. I had been running away for weeks, but I couldn't run forever. That night, I made an important decision. I called Rose in Savannah and accepted her invitation. "Rose, does your job offer still stand?" "Of course. When can you come?" "Next week." Savannah was further from Philadelphia, and besides, I would have an occupation that would keep me active and give me financial independence. I wasn't going to live off the house sale money forever. I wanted to keep that to secure Leo's future when he was older. I wanted to prove to myself, and incidentally to Jessica, that at 67 I was still capable of starting over. Before leaving Charlotte, I decided to do something I had been postponing, calling Jessica directly. I dialed her number at 7 a.m., knowing that at that hour I would find her at home. "Mom? Mom, is that you?" Her voice sounded desperate. "Yes, Jessica, it's me. Thank God. Where are you? Are you okay? I'm coming to get you right now." "Jessica, I am not going to tell you where I am, and I am not coming back." "But Mom, this is absurd. We are family." "Jessica, for years you treated me as if I were your employee. You stole money from me. You planned to put me in a home. You humiliated me in front of my grandson. That is not being family." "Mom, I never—" "Jessica, do not interrupt me. You are going to listen for the first time in years." My voice came out firm, without trembling. "I sold the house because I discovered you were stealing money from Leo's account. I changed my will because I discovered you planned to take my assets. I left because you spat in my face and told me I was a filthy old woman. Do you need me to remind you of anything else?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Mom, I was stressed. The divorce, the money problems." "Jessica, stress does not justify cruelty, and you had no money problems. You lived for free in my house, spent my money, and didn't work more than part-time." "And Leo?" "What? Are you going to punish your grandson for my mistakes?" It was the question I knew would come. The usual emotional manipulation. "Jessica, Leo is not being punished. He is learning that actions have consequences, that when you hurt the people who love you, you can lose them forever." "Mom, please, come back. I promise everything will change." "Jessica, for years you promised me you were going to change. You promised you were going to get a stable job, that you were going to treat me better, that you were going to be more independent. But the only promises you kept were the threats. You told me I was a burden and that I should leave. Well, here you have what you asked for." When I hung up the phone, my hands were trembling, but not from fear, from liberation. It was the first time in years I had spoken to Jessica without apologizing for existing, without begging for her love, without accepting her mistreatment. Karen, who had heard the conversation from the kitchen, approached and hugged me. "Maggie, I am very proud of you. You spoke like a woman who respects herself." That afternoon I packed my things to go to Savannah. I didn't know what awaited me there, but for the first time in a long time, that uncertainty excited me instead of scaring me. The day before leaving, I received a call I didn't expect. It was Linda, but this time, she sounded different. "Mom, I need to tell you something important." "Tell me, Linda." Jessica told me what really happened, about Leo's money, the power of attorney, the spitting. "Mom, I didn't know things were that bad." "Linda, your sister has been treating me like that for years. It didn't start last week." "I know, Mom. And I'm ashamed because I also thought you were exaggerating when you complained. But now I see it was all true. And I'm calling to tell you that, to ask for forgiveness, and to tell you that I understand why you left. In your place, I would have done the same, but I probably wouldn't have had your courage. That conversation made me reflect on something important. For years, the whole family had known how Jessica treated me, but no one had done anything to defend me. Everyone had preferred to believe I was exaggerating, that I was too sensitive, that I misinterpreted things. It was easier to blame the victim than confront the abuser. "Linda," I told her before hanging up, "I hope this experience serves you to treat your own mother better, because children who see grandmothers mistreated learn that it is normal to mistreat their mothers." "You're right, Mom. I'm going to reflect a lot on this." On the morning of my departure for Savannah, while waiting for the train at the station, I looked back one last time, not at the station, but at that whole stage of my life I was closing. I had been the perfect mother, the perfect grandmother, the woman who always put everyone before herself, and I had ended up being spat in the face by the person I had loved most in the world. But that humiliation had woken me from a long and painful dream. It had returned me to myself. When I boarded the train to Savannah, I didn't just carry a suitcase with clothes. I carried the wisdom of a woman who had finally learned that self-love is not selfishness, but survival. I arrived in Savannah on a Tuesday afternoon, and Rose was waiting for me at the station with a smile I hadn't seen in years. "Maggie, you look different. More, how do I say it? More yourself." She was right. During the 5-hour trip from Charlotte, I had felt how every mile took me away not only from Jessica, but from the submissive woman I had become. Rose took me directly to her house in the historic district, a quiet area with tree-lined streets that reminded me of the old days, when families knew their neighbors and problems were solved with conversations, not shouting. The room Rose had prepared for me was small but cozy, with a window overlooking a garden full of wisteria. "Maggie, this house is yours, for as long as you want. And tomorrow I'll show you the business. You'll see that working again will do you a lot of good." That night, while unpacking my suitcase for the 3rd time in a month, I realized something important. Every time I changed places, I carried fewer material things, but more security in myself. I no longer needed all those objects that for years I believed defined my identity. My true identity was being reborn from within. Rose's boutique was called Timeless Grace, and it specialized in clothes for women over 50. "Maggie, there is a huge market of ladies who want to dress well but can't find appropriate clothes for their age and body type," she explained as she showed me the shop. "Here we don't sell teen clothes or grandma smocks. We sell real elegance." I got excited seeing the well-cut dresses, the high-quality blouses, the classy accessories. And what would I do exactly? Attend to clients, help them choose outfits, and above all, use your life experience to advise them. Women our age don't just buy clothes. They buy confidence. My first day of work was a revelation. At 10 a.m., a lady of about 60 arrived, elegant but with a sad expression. "I'm looking for something for a wedding," she told me without much enthusiasm. "Is it a happy occasion?" I asked while accompanying her to see the dresses. "It's my oldest son's wedding, but my daughter-in-law didn't want me to go. In the end, they invited me, but I feel like I'm crashing the party." The story touched my heart because I recognized the pain in her eyes. "Ma'am, what is your name?" "Susan." "Susan, you are not crashing anything. You are the groom's mother. We are going to find you an outfit that makes you feel like the queen you are." We spent an hour choosing the perfect dress, navy blue, elegant cut, enhancing her figure without being exaggerated. When she tried it on and looked in the mirror, her face changed completely. "Is this really me?" "That is the Susan who has always been there," I said with sincerity. "She just needed the right outfit to shine." When she left, with her new dress and a radiant smile, Rose told me, "Maggie, you have a gift. You don't just sell clothes, you restore self-esteem." That afternoon, I realized that helping other women feel valuable was helping me heal my own wounds. During my first weeks in Savannah, I established a routine that filled me with energy. I woke up at 6 a.m., not because someone forced me, but because I felt like starting the day. I ate breakfast calmly while reading the news. I walked 15 minutes to the boutique. I worked until 6 p.m., and at night I read or watched movies I liked. On weekends I explored the city. I visited the Telfair museums, walked along River Street, went to service at the cathedral. It was incredible to rediscover that I had my own tastes. own opinions, a personality that had been dormant for years. One Saturday morning, while having breakfast at a cafe in the historic center, my phone rang. It was a Philadelphia number I didn't recognize. I hesitated to answer, but something told me to do it. Mrs. Margaret Henderson? Yes. Who is speaking? This is Mr. Davis, the principal at Leo's school. Excuse me for bothering you, but we need to speak with you about your grandson. My blood froze. Did something happen to Leo? No, ma'am. Physically, he is fine. But we are very worried about his emotional state. Since you left, the boy is very depressed. He doesn't participate in class, he cries frequently, and yesterday he told us something that alarmed us. What did he tell you? I asked, feeling my heart race. He told us that he is to blame for you leaving, and that if he hadn't been born, you would still be happy with his mom. The words broke my soul. Principal Davis, that is not true. Leo is not to blame for anything. We know, ma'am. But the child is very confused. His mom tells him one thing. You aren't here to explain the other. Would it be possible for you to come talk to him? Not necessarily to stay, just to explain the situation. The request put me in a terrible dilemma. I wanted to see Leo more than anything in the world, but I knew Jessica would use that visit to manipulate me emotionally. That afternoon, I called Mr. Harrison to ask for advice. Mr. Harrison, what happens if I go see Leo and Jessica tries to stop me from leaving again? Mrs. Henderson, you are a free person. No one can force you to stay anywhere. Furthermore, if you want, I can accompany you to the visit to ensure everything is legal and appropriate. The idea of having a lawyer present calmed me. And if Jessica tries to prevent me from seeing Leo, you are the child's grandmother. You have a legal right to see him, especially if the school considers it necessary for the minor's well-being. For several days, I turned the decision over in my mind. Rose advised me to go. Maggie, that boy needs you, and you need to ensure he is okay. But Karen, when I called her in Charlotte, gave me another perspective. Maggie, be careful. Jessica might be using the boy to make you come back. Doesn't it seem very convenient that the school calls you right now? Both were right, but in the end, my love for Leo outweighed my fears. I decided to return to Philadelphia for one day, just to see my grandson and explain the truth. On Friday morning, I took a flight from Savannah to Philadelphia. It was the first time I had flown alone in years, and that small freedom made me feel powerful. During the flight, I mentally prepared what I would say to Leo, and if necessary, to Jessica. I wasn't going to justify myself. I wasn't going to ask forgiveness for defending myself. I wasn't going to allow them to blackmail me emotionally. I was going, like the grandmother I am, to reassure a child who was suffering because of the irresponsible adults surrounding him. Mr. Harrison picked me up at the airport, and we went directly to the school. Are you ready, Mrs. Henderson? He asked as we walked toward the entrance. More ready than I have ever been, I replied with conviction. The principal received us in his office and explained the situation in more detail. Ma'am, Leo is a very intelligent boy, but he is clearly affected by this family situation. He needs emotional stability to be able to focus on his studies. Have you spoken to his mother about this? Yes, but she insists the problem is that you left without explanation. That's why we need you to speak directly to the boy. When they brought Leo to the office, my heart shattered. He had lost weight. He had dark circles under his eyes, and when he saw me, he burst into tears. Grandma, are you not mad at me anymore? He ran toward me, and I hugged him as if years had passed instead of 2 months. My love, I have never been mad at you, nor could I ever be. But you left without saying goodbye. Leo, look into your grandma's eyes. Adults sometimes have to make difficult decisions. I left because at home I wasn't treated well, but that has nothing to do with you. You are what I love most in the world. Then why won't you come back? The question I feared arrived inevitably. Leo, have you seen how your mom spoke to me? The boy looked down. Yes. And how did you feel when you saw that? Bad. I was scared she would yell at you. Exactly. I cannot live in a place where I am yelled at and disrespected. Not because I am proud, but because we all deserve to be treated with love. But what do I have to do with it? Nothing, my sweet. You have nothing to do with it. That's why I wrote you that letter, explaining that this is not your fault. Mom didn't give me any letter. The comment confirmed that Jessica had intercepted my mail. Another manipulation. Leo, I said, taking his little hands in mine, I want you to understand something very important. I did not abandon you. I am living in another place, but I will always be your grandma. You will always be able to count on me, but I cannot return to live where I am treated badly. And if I promise Mom will change?" The innocence of his words broke my heart. My love, adults have to change because they want to, not because others ask them to, and the change has to be real, not just promises. I gave him a long hug and promised we would see each other soon. "Can I call you on the phone?" "Of course. I'm going to give you my new number." When we left the school, Mr. Harrison suggested we go for lunch before my flight back. "How do you feel after seeing Leo?" Sad for him, but confirmed in my decision. That boy is being used as a pawn in his mother's manipulation game. And if Jessica appears at the airport, let her appear. I'm not afraid of her anymore. During lunch, my phone rang constantly. Jessica had discovered I was in the city and was calling me desperately. I didn't answer any calls, but I did read the text messages she sent. "Mom, I know you're here." The school called me. "Please come to the house. We have to talk. You can't leave again without seeing me. Mom, please, give your family a chance." Each message confirmed that Jessica still didn't understand that it wasn't about giving chances, but about basic respect. At 3 p.m., Mr. Harrison took me to the airport. While we waited in the boarding area, I felt proud of myself. I had come to Philadelphia for Leo. I had fulfilled my purpose, and I was leaving without letting myself be emotionally manipulated. But Jessica had other plans. When they announced my flight and I walked toward the gate, I saw her. She was standing by the entrance with Leo by the hand, waiting for me. My grandson ran toward me as soon as he saw me. "Grandma, don't go again." Jessica approached with tears in her eyes. A perfect performance for the occasion. "Mom, please. Leo needs his grandma. I need my mom." "Jessica," I said with a calm but firm voice, "I am not going to make a scene here. This is an airport. There are other people. Then come to the house. Let's talk like family. Jessica, we have nothing to talk about until you understand what you did wrong." "I told you, sorry." "What else do you want?" "I don't want empty apologies. I want you to change for real. And how am I going to change if you don't give me the chance?" The circular logic of always. "Jessica, for 3 years I gave you chances every day. Every time you yelled at me and then acted as if nothing happened. Every time you disrespected me and I stayed silent. Every time you borrowed money knowing you weren't going to pay me back. You exhausted all your chances." Leo looked at me without understanding the adult conversation, but clearly anguished by the tension. "Look what you're doing to Leo," Jessica told me, playing her last card. "Look what you have done to him for years," I replied. "Look how you put him in the middle of our problems instead of protecting him. Look how you are using him right now to manipulate me." Jessica was left speechless for a moment. Leo tugged at my blouse. "Grandma, can I go with you?" His innocent question broke my heart, but also confirmed what I already knew. That boy was seeking emotional stability that his mother couldn't give him. "My love," I said, bending down to his height, "you have to stay with your mom. That is your place. But I want you to know that whenever you need me, I will be here for you. Do you promise?" "I promise." I gave him a tight hug and whispered in his ear, "Behave well, study hard, and remember your grandma loves you more than anything in the world." When I stood up, Jessica's face was red with contained rage. "This isn't going to end like this, Maggie." "You're right," I told her with a serene smile. "It's not going to end like this. It's going to get worse if you keep failing to understand the lesson." During the flight back to Savannah, I reflected on what had happened. Seeing Leo had confirmed my decision was correct. That boy needed to know there were adults in his life who respected themselves, who didn't accept mistreatment, who took difficult decisions when necessary. If I returned and went back to being the submissive grandmother of before, I would be teaching him that love means enduring humiliation. Better to teach him, with my example, that self-love is just as important as love for others. When I arrived at Rose's house that night, she was waiting for me with a hot dinner and an understanding smile. "How did it go?" "Hard, but necessary," I replied. I saw Leo. I confirmed it's not his fault, and I confirmed that Jessica still understands nothing. "And how do you feel?" "Free." For the first time in years, I feel completely free. That night I slept better than in weeks. knowing I had done the right thing for both Leo and myself. The next day, Saturday, I decided to do something I had been postponing, calling my other friends from my youth to tell them about my new life. The first was Hope, who lived in Richmond. When I told her the whole story, her reaction surprised me. "Maggie, how brave. I've been enduring my son Michael's rudeness for years because I'm afraid of being alone." "Hope, being alone isn't the worst thing that can happen to you. The worst is being accompanied by people who don't value you." I told her about my work at the boutique, my new independence, the peace I had found. "You know what, Maggie? You gave me a lot to think about." On Monday morning at the boutique, a new client arrived who marked me deeply. She was a lady of about 70, very elegant, but with a sad expression. "I'm looking for clothes to go live in a nursing home," she told me with a resigned voice. "My son says I can't live alone anymore." Something in her story reminded me of myself a few months ago. "Do you want to go to that nursing home?" "Of course not. But my son says it's best for me." "And what do you think?" "That my son wants to keep my house and needs me out of the way." We spent the whole morning talking. Her name was Mercedes, and her story was very similar to mine. Manipulative son, pressure to accept decisions others made for her, emotional blackmail disguised as concern. "Mercedes," I finally told her, "are you in full possession of your mental faculties?" "Of course." "Do you have your own financial resources?" "Yes, my pension and my savings." "Then why do you have to do what your son wants instead of what you want?" The question left her thinking. In the end, she didn't buy clothes for the nursing home, but a beautiful dress to think things over better. That afternoon, Rose made me a proposal that would change my life forever. "Maggie, I've been thinking, would you like to be my partner in the business?" The question took me by surprise. "Your partner?" "Yes. You have a special gift for connecting with clients, and I'm also thinking of expanding the business, opening a second branch, maybe offering image consulting for mature women. Would you be interested?" The proposal moved me deeply. It wasn't just a financial opportunity, but the recognition that I had value, talent, capabilities that others appreciated. "Rose, are you sure? I've never been a partner in anything." "Maggie, you have something money can't buy. Life experience, genuine empathy, and the capacity to make other women feel valuable. That is exactly what our business needs." That night I stayed awake thinking about the proposal. At 67 years old, I was having the opportunity to be a business owner, to be financially independent, to build something of my own. It was something I had never dreamed of because I had always been busy living for others. On Wednesday afternoon, while organizing the boutique inventory, my phone rang. It was Leo calling from the school phone. "Grandma, is it true you're never going to see me again?" "Who told you that, my love?" "Mom says that since you don't want to come back to the house, you don't want to know anything about me anymore." Jessica's manipulation knew no bounds. "Leo, that is a lie. I am always going to want to see you. In fact, I was thinking maybe you could come visit me during vacation." "Really? Really? But you'd have to ask your mom for permission." "I'm going to ask her right now." That same afternoon, Jessica called me furious. "How dare you put weird ideas in Leo's head?" "What weird ideas?" I told him he could visit me. "Not crazy am I going to let you take my son." "Jessica, I'm not taking him. It would just be a vacation visit, like any kid visiting his grandparents." "You are not like just any grandmother. You abandoned your family." "Jessica, I abandoned no one. I defended myself from an abusive daughter." "Maggie, stop playing the victim." "Jessica, stop playing the innocent. We've known each other for 34 years. You know exactly why I left." The conversation ended with Jessica hanging up on me, but that night Leo called me again. "Grandma, Mom says you're dangerous. What do you think?" "My love, that you are not dangerous, that you are the best grandma in the world, and you trust me. Then don't worry about what others say. You know who I really am." That conversation confirmed something important. Leo was developing his own judgment, his own capacity to distinguish between truth and manipulation. It was a skill that would serve him all his life. On Friday of that week, I gave Rose my answer. I accepted being her partner. We signed papers before a notary, and officially I became co-owner of Timeless Grace for the first time in my life. My name was on business documents as a businesswoman, not as a beneficiary or dependent of someone else. That night we celebrated with a special dinner, and Rose gifted me business cards with my name, Margaret Henderson, image consultant and founding partner. When I saw my name printed that way, my eyes filled with tears of joy. During the following days, I worked with more enthusiasm than ever. Every client I attended was an opportunity to demonstrate that mature women have much to offer the world. One afternoon, a lady arrived who told me her family pressured her to sell her house and go live with a daughter who didn't love her. "Do you want to sell your house?" I asked her. "Not at all. It's the house where I raised my kids, where I lived with my husband, but they say it's best for me." "Ma'am, who decides what is best for you?" The question made her reflect deeply. At the end of that week, I received a call that filled me with pride. It was Mercedes, the lady who had come looking for clothes for the nursing home. "Maggie, I have to tell you, I told my son I'm not going to any nursing home, that my house is mine, and I'm staying in it." He got furious, "But he can't force me." "And how do you feel?" "Free. For the first time in months, I feel free, and all thanks to our conversation." When I hung up, I realized my personal experience had become a tool to help other women. My pain had found a purpose. That night, while dining with Rose, I reflected on everything that had changed in my life in such a short time. 3 months ago, I was a humiliated, robbed, despised woman in her own home. Now I was a successful businesswoman, with a new life, new friends, new purposes, but above all, I was a woman who respected herself. "Rose," I told her, "I think I found my true calling, helping women like me discover their worth." "Maggie, I think you're right, and I think this is just the beginning." 3 months after becoming a partner at Timeless Grace, I received a call that changed everything. It was Mr. Harrison with news I didn't expect. "Mrs. Henderson, Jessica has just filed a lawsuit trying to annul the sale of the house." My heart raced. "Can she do that?" "She is alleging that you were under the influence of third parties when you made the decision, but she has no legal basis. However, there is something more important I must tell you. Jessica lost her job 2 weeks ago and is in a very complicated financial situation. Apparently, the lawsuit is a desperate act." The information surprised me, but it didn't cause the sadness I would have expected. It caused a strange mix of compassion and confirmation that I had made the right decision. That afternoon, while working with a new client, my phone rang incessantly. It was an unknown number, but when I finally answered, I heard a voice that froze my blood. "Mrs. Maggie?" "Yes. Who is speaking?" "It's Linda. Excuse me for bothering you, but I need to talk to you urgently." "Did something happen to Leo?" I asked, feeling my stomach shrink. "No, Mom." "Well, yes, it's complicated. Could we speak in person? I'm in Savannah." The news took me completely off guard. "You're in Savannah?" "Yes. I came specifically to find you. There are things you need to know about Jessica and Leo." That same afternoon, we met at a cafe in the historic district. Linda arrived with a serious and tired expression. "Mom, what I'm going to tell you isn't going to be easy to hear." "Tell me, Linda." "Nothing can surprise me anymore. Jessica is completely bankrupt. She lost her job because she was constantly late. She spent all her savings on unnecessary things, and now she owes 3 months' rent on the apartment where she lives." "And Leo?" "That's the part that worries me most, Mom. Jessica is telling everyone that you abandoned them on a whim, that you became selfish in your old age, that you don't want your own family anymore. Leo is very confused because he hears one version at home and another when he talks to you on the phone." Linda continued with information that broke my heart. "Mom, last week I went to visit them and found Leo doing homework alone while Jessica was on the phone fighting with the landlord. The boy asked me if it was true that you didn't love him anymore because he was a burden." My eyes filled with tears, imagining my grandson thinking those barbarities. "What did you tell him?" "I told him the truth, that you love him more than anything in the world, but that you had to leave because Jessica treated you very badly." Do you know what he answered? "What?" "That he already knew that he always felt bad when he saw his mom yell at you, but he didn't know what to do to fix it." "Linda, why are you telling me all this?" I asked her, though I suspected the answer. "Because Jessica asked me to come convince you to return, but after seeing the real situation, I think what you need is to know the whole truth to make the best decision." "And what is the whole truth?" "That Jessica hasn't changed at all, Mom. She keeps blaming everyone except herself. She keeps waiting for others to solve her problems, and she is using Leo as emotional blackmail to try to get you back. The information confirmed what I already knew, but hearing it from Linda's lips gave it an external validation I needed. That night, after Linda left, I stayed awake thinking about Leo. Rose realized my concern and sat with me in the living room. "Maggie, what are you going to do?" "I don't know, Rose. On one hand, I know I can't go back to live with Jessica, but on the other hand, I can't let Leo suffer the consequences of his mother's mistakes." "And what if there is a third option?" she asked me with that wisdom that characterized her. "Like what? What if Leo comes to live with you here in Savannah, far from all that toxic environment?" The idea excited and terrified me at the same time. But would Jessica agree? If she's bankrupt and can't take care of him properly, maybe she has no other choice. The next day, I called Mr. Harrison to consult him about the legal possibility of that option. "Mrs. Henderson, if Jessica is in a precarious economic situation and you can prove you have stable conditions to care for the minor, it is possible to request temporary custody, especially if the child's emotional well-being is at risk." "But Jessica won't oppose it?" "She can oppose it, but if she can't provide a stable environment and you can, the law favors the best interest of the minor." The possibility began to take shape in my mind as a solution that could benefit everyone, especially Leo. That same afternoon, I received a direct call from Jessica. Her voice sounded different, more broken, less aggressive. "Mom, I need to talk to you." "Tell me, Jessica." I'm in trouble. Serious trouble." For the first time in years, I heard real vulnerability in her voice, not calculated manipulation. "What kind of economic problems?" "I'm going to be evicted from the apartment. I don't have a job. I don't know what to do with Leo." "And why are you calling me?" "As I recall, I'm a filthy old woman who is only good for getting in the way." "Mom, please. I know I behaved badly towards you." "You behaved badly, Jessica. You stole money from me. You planned to take my house. You humiliated me for years and spat in my face." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Mom, I didn't know how to ask for your forgiveness." "Jessica, forgiveness isn't something you ask for. It's something you earn. What have you done to earn it?" "I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. About how I treated you. About how I became a person I don't like." Her voice broke. "I lost the best mother in the world because of my ego." Tears started running down my cheeks, but they weren't tears of joy, but of deep sadness for all the lost time. "Jessica, do you really understand what you did to me?" "I think so. I made you feel like a burden in your own home. I stole your money. I disrespected you in front of your grandson. I treated you as if you were my employee instead of my mother." "And why did you do it?" Because I felt like a failure. My marriage had ended. I didn't have a stable job. I was living in your house at 34, and instead of striving to get ahead, it was easier to blame you for my problems." It was the first time Jessica assumed real responsibility for her actions. No excuses, no justifications, no blaming others. "And what do you need from me now?" I asked her, though I already knew the answer. "Help. Not for me, but for Leo. He isn't to blame for my mistakes." "What kind of help?" "I don't know. Maybe he could go live with you while I fix my life. I know I have no right to ask you for anything after everything I did, but he needs you." The proposal surprised me coming from her. "Would you be willing to let Leo live with me? If that is what's best for him." "Yes. You were always a better mother than I have been, and definitely, you are a better grandmother than I am a mother." That conversation left me in a very complex emotional state. On one hand, I felt a strange satisfaction seeing that Jessica finally understood the magnitude of her errors. On the other hand, it hurt me deeply to see my daughter in that situation, regardless of everything she had done to me. And above all, I was excited by the possibility of caring for Leo in a healthy and stable environment. "Jessica, if we are going to consider that option, I need you to understand some things. First, this does not mean everything is automatically forgiven. Second, if Leo comes with me, it's going to be under my rules, not yours. Third, you are going to need to demonstrate real changes, not just promises." "I understand all that, Mom. And I accept the conditions. Are you sure? because Leo is not an object you can lend and then recover when it suits you. If he comes with me, it's going to be because it really is best for him, not a temporary solution for your problems. Mom, for the first time in a long time, I am really thinking about what is best for my son instead of what is most convenient for me. The conversation ended with the agreement that Jessica would speak with Leo about the possibility, and that afterward, we would have a conversation between the three of us to make the final decision. 2 days later, Jessica and Leo arrived in Savannah by bus. When I saw my grandson get off the bus, my heart filled with joy. He had grown in those months, but above all, he looked calmer than the last time I had seen him. Jessica, on the other hand, looked gaunt, thinner, with deep circles under her eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. When we hugged, it was different. There wasn't the tension from before, nor the acting, nor the coldness. It was the hug of a daughter who finally understood she had lost something valuable. Rose welcomed us to her house with incredible warmth. She had prepared the guest room for Jessica and had bought toys for Leo. During dinner, I observed the dynamic between mother and son. Jessica was more attentive to Leo, more present, more affectionate than I had seen her in years. "Grandma," Leo told me during dinner, "is it true I could come live with you? Would you like that, my love?" "Yes. But what about my mom? I don't want to leave her all alone." My grandson's concern for his mother confirmed he was a boy with a noble heart despite everything he had lived through. "Leo," Jessica told him with a soft voice, "Mom is going to be fine. I need to fix some things in my life. And in the meantime, you're going to be better with your grandma. But will you visit me?" "Of course, my love. And when I fix everything, we can be together again." "Do you promise you're going to fix everything?" "I promise. But this time, it's going to be a real promise, not like the other times." That night, after putting Leo to bed, Jessica and I had the most honest conversation of our lives. "Mom, I want you to know I don't expect you to forgive me immediately." "Jessica, forgiveness is a process. It doesn't happen overnight." "I know, and I also know I have to demonstrate with facts that I really changed." "What plans do you have?" "First, get a stable job. I already have some interviews scheduled in Philadelphia. Second, seek psychological help to understand why I became such a bitter person. Third, pay all my debts, including the money I stole from you. And afterwards, if you allow me, I would like to earn the right to be part of this family again. Not like before, when I only took and never gave, but like a daughter who respects and values her mother." That conversation touched me deeply because I saw in Jessica the girl I had raised with so much love, but I also kept my defenses high because I had learned that pretty words do not guarantee coherent actions. "Jessica, I am very glad to hear you speak like this, but it is going to take time and concrete facts for me to be able to trust you again. I understand completely, and I'm not going to pressure you. If it takes me years to recover your trust, I'm going to take those years. And if you never recover it completely," the question was harsh but necessary, "then at least I will have the peace of mind that I tried to fix the damage I did and that Leo grew up in a healthy environment with you." The following days were emotionally intense. Jessica and Leo stayed a week with me in Savannah, getting to know my new life. Seeing my work at the boutique, adapting to the quiet routine of a house where there were no shouts or tensions. Jessica helped in everything she could without being asked. She washed dishes, made the bed, took Leo to the park. It was as if she were trying to prove she could be a considerate person. "Mom," she told me one afternoon while we prepared dinner together, "I never realized how much you worked in the house. I thought everything just did itself." Leo, for his part, adapted to Savannah as if he had been born there. He loved my room, was fascinated by Rose's garden. He became immediate friends with the neighbors' grandkids. One afternoon, while playing in the yard, he asked me, "Grandma, nobody yells here?" "No, my love. Here all conversations are with respect." I like it a lot." That night, when I was tucking him in, he said something that split my heart. "Grandma, why did Mom used to yell at you so much?" "I don't know, my sweet. Sometimes adults make very big mistakes, and she's not going to yell at you anymore." "Let's hope not, my love. Let's hope not." On the last day of their visit, Jessica made a decision that surprised me. "Mom, I've been thinking, and I think Leo should stay with you permanently." "Are you sure?" "Completely. In this week, I have seen him happier than he has been in months. Here he has stability, tranquility, unconditional love. I am barely learning to be a responsible mother. He can't wait for me to finish learning. And what are you going to do? I'm going to return to Philadelphia, get a job, fix my life, go to therapy, and when I have really changed, when I am a person he can be proud of, then maybe we can talk about other options. That afternoon, we initiated the legal paperwork for Leo to stay with me. Jessica signed all the necessary documents without hesitation, without conditions, without drama. "Mom," she told me while signing the papers, "thank you for saving my son from my mistakes." "Jessica, I am not saving Leo from you. I am giving him the opportunity to grow in a stable environment while you fix yourself. That is a very important difference." "You're right, as always." When she got on the bus back to Philadelphia, we both cried, but they were different tears. Mine of hope, hers of determination. The first months with Leo in Savannah were a wonderful adaptation period. I enrolled my grandson in an excellent school near the boutique, where I could pick him up after work. In the afternoons, we did homework together, cooked, watched movies, played in the park. On weekends, we explored the city, visited museums, went to family parties with Rose. It was the family life I had always dreamed of having but never could fully enjoy when Jessica was little because I worked too much. Jessica kept her word. Every week she called me to tell me about her progress. She got a job as a receptionist at a medical clinic. She started therapy. She moved into a small but decent studio apartment. And most importantly, her conversations with me began to change. She no longer called to ask for favors or to complain about her problems. She called to ask how I was, how Leo was, to tell me good things about her day. "Mom," she told me in one of those calls, "my therapist is helping me understand that for years I had resentment toward you without reason. I blamed you for my failed marriage, for my financial problems, for everything that went wrong in my life. And now what do you think? That you were the only person who was always there for me, that you gave me everything you could, and that I confused your unconditional love with an obligation to endure my abuse." Those words healed wounds I had been carrying for years. They didn't erase the pain of everything that had happened, but they did give me hope that maybe one day we could have a genuine and respectful mother-daughter relationship. 6 months after Leo moved in with me, Jessica came to visit us for his birthday. The woman who got off the bus was unrecognizable. She had gained weight in a healthy way. She had better color in her face. She dressed more carefully, but above all, she had a calm in her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. Her reunion with Leo was beautiful. There was no desperation or guilt, just genuine love between mother and son. "Mommy, you look very pretty," Leo told her when he saw her. "It's because I'm very happy to see you, my love," she replied. During that visit, Jessica behaved like the daughter I had always hoped to have. She helped around the house without being asked. She played with Leo without looking at her phone. She conversed with me about real topics without manipulations or complaints. One night, after putting Leo to bed, we had a conversation that marked a before and after in our relationship. "Mom, I want to formally ask for your forgiveness for everything I did to you." "Jessica." "No, let me finish. For years I disrespected you. I stole money. I humiliated you. I treated you as if you were my employee. I planned to take your house and put you in a home against your will. I spat in your face and told you unforgivable things. There is no justification for any of that. And why do you ask forgiveness now? Because I finally understand the damage I did to you. Because therapy helped me see that my behavior was abusive, not just rude or disrespectful. Because I want you to know I completely recognize my responsibility in everything that happened. And what do you expect to happen now? Nothing. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect things to go back to how they were before. I don't expect you to forget what happened. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did, that I regret it deeply, and that I am going to live the rest of my life trying to be a better person. For the first time in years, I hugged my daughter without reservations, without fear, without defenses. It was the hug of a mother seeing her daughter finally become the woman she always knew she could be. That night, lying in my bed, I reflected on the whole journey. A year ago, I was a humiliated, robbed, despised woman in her own home. Now I was a successful businesswoman, a happy grandmother, a woman who respected herself. I had lost a house, but I had gained a life. I had lost an abusive daughter, but I had recovered a daughter in the process of healing. And above all, I had taught my grandson that love does not mean enduring mistreatment, but valuing oneself enough to walk away from those who hurt us. Sometimes the best lessons are taught with actions, not words. 2 years later, my life in Savannah had become everything I had always dreamed of, but never dared to imagine. Timeless Grace now had 3 branches in the city, and our consulting program for older women had become so popular we had a 2-month waiting list. Every morning I woke up with the excitement of someone who has a purpose, not with the fear of someone walking on eggshells. Leo, who was now 11, was a completely different boy from the one who arrived with me 2 years ago. Sure of himself, cheerful, respectful, with excellent grades and many friends, seeing him flourish in a stable environment confirmed every day that I had made the right decisions. One April morning, while watering the azaleas in the garden Rose and I had planted together, a letter arrived that filled me with pride. It was from the Savannah Chamber of Commerce, informing me that Timeless Grace had been selected as Business of the Year for inclusivity of the elderly. The recognition wasn't just for sales, but for our free workshops where we helped older women rebuild their self-esteem after difficult divorces, widowhood, or family conflicts. "Maggie," Rose shouted from the kitchen when I told her the news, "we have to celebrate! This is huge!" That afternoon, while preparing a special dinner to celebrate, I realized I had found not just a new life, but my true vocation. Leo came running from school with his backpack bouncing on his back and a smile lighting up the whole house. "Grandma, the teacher says my project on Mexican-American businesswomen won first place." His project had been about me, about how a 7-year-old woman had started a successful business after a devastating family crisis. "My love, I am very proud of you," I told him, while hugging him. "But more importantly, are you proud of your grandma?" "Super proud." I told all my friends my grandma is a famous businesswoman. His words filled me with a happiness I had never known. It was the happiness of being valued, respected, admired by someone who truly knew me. That night, after tucking Leo in, I sat in my favorite garden chair with a cup of chamomile tea, observing the stars. It had been exactly 3 years since Jessica had spat in my face and called me a filthy old woman. 3 years since I had made the most difficult and liberating decision of my life. In that time, I had completely rebuilt my existence. I had found my value as a person. I had raised a grandson in a healthy environment and helped dozens of women discover their own strength. But above all, I had learned that self-love is not selfishness, but the basis of every healthy relationship. Jessica had kept her word in a surprising way. During these 2 years, she had visited Leo every 3 months, always respectful, always grateful, always aware she was in my house under my rules. Her visits had become moments of genuine joy, not tension. She had been promoted at her job to administrative coordinator, had paid off all her debts, kept up her therapy, and developed a healthy social life. But most importantly, she had learned to be a mother without being possessive, to love without controlling, to be present without invading. "Mom," she had told me on her last visit, "thank you for teaching me that loving someone sometimes means letting them go." One afternoon in May, while attending a new client in the boutique, a woman entered who immediately reminded me of myself 3 years ago. She was about 65, well-dressed but with a defeated expression, slumped shoulders, soft voice, as if apologizing for existing. "I'm looking for something elegant, but not too expensive," she said with an almost inaudible voice. "For what occasion?" I asked with the warmth I had learned to use with women I recognized were vulnerable. "My kids are moving me to a nursing home. They want me to look presentable for the interview." Her words transported me immediately to the past. "Do you want to move to that nursing home?" I asked directly. "Of course not. But my kids say I can't live alone anymore, that I'm a burden to them. And what do you think? That they want to sell my house and split the money. But I can't say that because then I'm a suspicious, paranoid old woman." I sat with her in the consultation area we had created specifically for these cases. "Ma'am, what is your name?" "Carol." "Carol, are you in full possession of your mental faculties?" "Of course." "Do you have your own financial resources?" "Yes, my pension and my savings." "Then why do you have to do what your children want instead of what you want?" We spent 2 hours talking. Carol told me a story that was like seeing my past in a mirror. Manipulative children, emotional blackmail disguised as concern, constant pressure to make decisions she didn't want. But I also saw in her something that excited me. The same internal fire that had awakened in me when I finally decided to defend myself. "Carol," I finally said, "do you know what you need?" "What?" "A lawyer. Not a new dress." I gave her the contact for Mr. Harrison, who now specialized in cases of financial abuse of the elderly. "And Carol, one more thing. You are not crazy, you are not paranoid, and definitely, you are not a burden. You are an intelligent woman who is being manipulated by people who should be protecting her." 2 weeks later, Carol returned to the boutique, completely transformed. She walked upright, spoke with a firm voice, had a sparkle in her eyes. "Maggie, I have to tell you, I followed your advice, hired the lawyer, and it turns out my kids had already made an appointment with a realtor to appraise my house without my authorization." "And what did you do?" "I told them I knew their plans, that I had changed my will, and that if they continued pressuring me, they weren't going to inherit a dime." "How did they react?" "First they got furious, then they tried to convince me I was sick, then they begged me, but I stood firm. In the end, they had to accept that I am going to keep living in my house as long as I damn well please." Stories like Carol's had become common in my new life. Through the boutique, I had met dozens of older women in situations similar to mine and learned that abuse of the elderly by their own children was much more common than people wanted to admit. That's why Rose and I had decided to expand our business beyond clothes. Now we offered self-esteem workshops, lectures on seniors' rights, and a support group that met every Tuesday afternoon. Women with Purpose had become a refuge for ladies who needed to rediscover their worth after years of family mistreatment. One afternoon in June, while leading one of these workshops, a young woman entered who caught my attention. She was about 35, well-dressed, but with an expression of anguish. She sat in the back and didn't participate in the conversation, but I noticed she took notes constantly. At the end of the workshop, she approached me, with tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Henderson, can I speak with you in private?" "Of course, dear." We sat in my office, and she began to cry. I think I am like the daughter you spoke about in your lecture. I think I am mistreating my mom, and I hadn't realized it." Her name was Anna, and her story broke my heart because I saw in her the Jessica of 3 years ago. "My mom has lived with me since my dad died 2 years ago. At first, it was temporary, but then she stayed. And I treat her very badly. I yell at her. I ignore her. I make her feel like a nuisance." "Why do you think you do that?" "Because I'm frustrated with my life. I got divorced last year. I have money problems, and it's easier to take it out on her than to face my problems." "And how does your mom feel?" "Sad, very sad. Yesterday I found her crying in the kitchen, and when I asked what was wrong, she said nothing. But I know it's my fault." We talked for an hour. I told her my story without judging her, trying to help her understand the damage she was causing before it was too late. "Anna, your mom isn't going to be there forever, and when she's gone, you're going to have to live with the remorse of how you treated her. Do you think I can still fix things?" "Of course, but it has to be a real change, not just promises. You have to seek help for your problems, treat your mom with respect, and above all, stop blaming her for things that aren't her responsibility." Anna left with a list of recommended therapists and a promise to return in a month to tell me how things were going. A month later, Anna returned accompanied by a lady of about 70, elegant and smiling. "Mrs. Henderson, this is my mom, Hope. I wanted to meet you and thank you personally." Hope hugged me with tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Henderson, you don't know how my daughter has changed since she spoke with you. She doesn't yell at me anymore. She asks my opinion on things. She treats me with affection. It's as if I got my daughter back." Anna had kept her word. She was in therapy, had started treating her mother as she deserved, and had stopped blaming her for her own problems. "Mrs. Henderson," Anna told me, "you saved me from becoming someone I didn't want to be." These encounters had become the most rewarding part of my new life. Every woman I helped recover her self-esteem, every daughter I managed to get to recognize her abusive behavior before it was too late, every family I saved from destruction confirmed that my pain had a greater purpose. I hadn't suffered in vain. I had suffered to learn, to grow, to be able to help others. My personal experience had become a tool for healing for women who needed to know they weren't alone, that they had options, that they deserved respect. In August, I received a call that filled me with joy. It was Mercedes, the lady who had come looking for clothes for the nursing home. "Maggie, I have to tell you the news. My son officially apologized for trying to force me to sell my house. He is in family therapy, and we are rebuilding our relationship. And how do you feel? Free, respected, valued. For the first time in years, my son speaks to me like a person, not a child. And what did you learn from all this experience? That I have to defend myself, that no one else is going to do it for me, and that you were right. Love does not mean enduring mistreatment." One September afternoon, while Leo did his homework at the kitchen table, he asked me something that made me reflect deeply. "Grandma, did you forgive my mom?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask that, my love?" "Because at school we are doing a project on forgiveness, and I want to understand if you already forgave everything that happened." I sat next to him, carefully thinking about my answer. "Leo, forgiveness is something very complicated. It's not like in the movies where someone says sorry and everything is fixed immediately." "So, you haven't forgiven her?" "Forgiveness is a process, my love. Your mom did things that hurt me a lot, but she has also made a real effort to change, so I am in the process of forgiving." "And what does that mean?" "It means I no longer feel rage toward her, that I can be with her without feeling pain, that I recognize her effort to be a better person. But it also means I don't forget what happened, and I maintain my boundaries to protect myself. And if she behaves badly again, then I will have to make difficult decisions again, but I hope that doesn't happen." "Grandma, I'm proud of you." "Why, my sweet?" "Because you were brave. Because you didn't let yourself be mistreated. Because you taught me that I should respect myself." His words confirmed that the most important lesson I had given Leo wasn't about forgiving, but about valuing oneself. In October, an invitation arrived that moved me deeply. The University of Georgia had invited me to give a lecture on entrepreneurship in the third age for business administration students. It was academic recognition that my experience had value, that my story could inspire others. The day of the lecture, the auditorium was full of 2 0-year-olds who listened with attention and respect as I told them how I had started a successful business at 67 after a devastating personal crisis. "Mrs. Henderson," a student asked me at the end, "what would you say to an older woman who is in a situation of family mistreatment and is afraid to defend herself?" I would tell her that fear is normal, but living with fear is worse than facing uncertainty. I would tell her she deserves respect, that she has options, and that it is never too late to start over. "And what would you say to children who mistreat their parents without realizing it? That they open their eyes before it is too late, that their parents are not going to be there forever, and when they are gone, they will have to live with the remorse of how they treated them." After the lecture, several students approached to tell me about their own families, about mistreated grandparents, about parents who didn't respect their elders. I realized my story had touched something deep in those young people, that perhaps some of them would return home with a new perspective on how to treat their older relatives. It was gratifying to know my experience could prevent the suffering of other people. In November, Jessica came for Leo's birthday. As always, she arrived with appropriate gifts, with enough time to help with preparations, and with a respectful attitude toward my house and my rules. During the party, I observed how she interacted with her son. Present, attentive, affectionate, but without the possessive desperation of before. She had learned to be a mother without smothering, to love without controlling. "Mom," she told me that night after putting Leo to bed, "I want you to know that every day I am grateful for the decision you took 3 years ago. Because you forced me to grow up. You forced me to face my problems instead of blaming others. You forced me to become the person Leo needed me to be." "Jessica, do you really believe you needed me to leave to learn that?" "Honestly, yes. I was so comfortable mistreating you, knowing you were always going to take it, that I never would have changed if you hadn't set drastic boundaries." "And you don't resent that I made that decision?" "On the contrary. I resent that it took me so long to understand I was being abusive to you. I resent that you had to go to that extreme for me to react." It was the first time Jessica used the word abusive to describe her behavior, and that confirmed she truly understood the magnitude of what she had done. In December, while decorating the house for the holidays, Leo asked me a question that filled me with pride. "Grandma, can I invite my friends to the Christmas party? I want them to meet the coolest grandma in Savannah." His request moved me deeply because it represented everything I had built, a house full of love, respect, and joy. A house where children wanted to bring their friends because they knew they would be well received. A house where peace was breathed instead of tension. Of course, my love. This is your house as much as mine. The Christmas open house was an incredible success. 15 kids came with their parents, and the house filled with laughter, carols, and the warmth of a genuine celebration. Several parents thanked me for the hospitality, but above all, they thanked me for the example I was setting for their children. Mrs. Henderson, a mother told me, "My son talks constantly about you. He says he wants his grandma to be like you when he grows up." Those words confirmed I had achieved something more important than business success. I had managed to be an example of dignity and strength for a new generation. On New Year's Eve, while Jessica, Leo, and I dined quietly at home, I reflected on everything that had changed in my life during these 3 years. I had lost a house, but I had gained a home. I had lost an abusive daughter, but I had recovered a daughter in the process of healing. I had lost the false peace of submissive silence, but I had gained the true peace of mutual respect. And above all, I had discovered that it is never too late to start over, to defend your rights, to demand the respect you deserve.